Welcome to the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast, where hosts Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman tackle the biggest challenges facing businesses today with candor, insight, and a healthy dose of reality. In this episode, titled The Talent Problem CEOs and CHROs Can't Ignore, Tim and Andreas dive deep into one of the most pressing issues confronting organizations in 2025: how to maintain meaningful human connection and employee engagement in an era of aggressive AI adoption and workforce transformation. The conversation centers around a compelling article from HR Brew by Courtney Vinopal titled CEOs and CHROs Are Hyper-Focused on Talent as Businesses Invest Deeper in AI. Tim and Andreas explore the stark reality facing chief human resources officers who are being asked to do more with less, managing ratios of one HR professional to 2,500 employees, while somehow driving better retention, reducing turnover, and keeping employees engaged across an increasingly diverse generational workforce. The hosts examine why so many AI implementations are falling short of their promises, with 95% of AI projects failing to deliver meaningful results, and what organizations are getting wrong when they throw technology at people's problems without considering the human element. They discuss their own solution, BalanceWise IQ, and explore how weekly employee check-ins, combined with AI-powered insights, can help HR leaders and managers focus their limited time where it matters most. From the psychology of employee feedback to the sensationalism of "you're fired" TikTok videos, this episode challenges listeners to rethink their approach to talent management and stop doing the stupid stuff that's costing them their best people.
Hi, everybody. This is Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman, the two crazy people that do the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. As I say, stop doing stupid stuff, I just think about some of the things that have been going on recently in business world around us. But in particular, we want to talk today about an article that we teed up. So, Andreas, what's on the plate for today?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny doing a podcast on stop doing stupid stuff. The good thing is we're never going to run out of material, apparently.
Agreed.
So,
Oh my God, agreed.
so the article for today is out of HR Brew. It's called CEOs and CHROs Are Hyper-Focused on Talent as Businesses Invest Deeper in AI by Courtney Vinopal. And it's a good tee-up article because the trajectory, the topic of it is we're obviously both deeply passionate about it. And as if you've listened to the past couple of podcasts from a CHRO perspective, we kind of feel they're at the short end of the stick. HR teams have been kind of decimated, reduced, over since COVID, since virtualization, and some of those functions were put into middle management roles, dual hybrid roles of operational delivery, sales delivery, whatever, but then also shouldering a bit of the HR, quote unquote, HR practices, right? And now middle management is the next one's up on the SPOC ratio reductions in force. And you're decimating even further. So now CEOs, CFOs right now are kind of the ones, looking at the numbers and shot calling right now. We're like, well, CHRO, what are you doing about this? And the CHRO is looking like, I'm in a company of 10,000 people and I got a ratio of 1 to, 2,500 and no tools. We haven't even updated, I don't know, Oracle, for the past couple of years. You're asking me what I'm going to do about this. Oh, and here's AI, entering into the fold the past couple of years, and AI does everything. It fixes all the problems. Except financial problems and P&L problems, apparently. And people selling AI are doing really, really great. But the practitioners, the users of the AI, I'm not seeing empirical evidence that the adoption rate is moving into into their P&L. So I think the point of the article is how can you look at it from a human perspective? And if you're a CHRO and now you're being tasked to drive better retention, less turnover, more engaged employees with this huge, and again, several podcasts we've been talking about now a couple of years, as a matter of fact, the generational makeup of the workforce is so diverse in terms
Yeah.
of the age and experience and societal experiences everyone has had, and that's going to shape them as employees and contributors and volunteers and professors and students, you know what I mean? And so the article kind of rightfully raises what we feel is rightfully raising the stance of how can we use AI to help with the human connection, help with
Right.
the human relation side of it. I mean, that's my
I,
kind
I,
of take on it. Tim, what do you think, bud?
well, no, I think it's the same thing, I thought Courtney did a great job on the article. To your point, and I really like that. It started with the surveys from a reasonable size sample about what are people stressing about, and you know, and obviously the people piece of it. Even though I think you know headlines are really tough, right? Because nobody writes the headline really based on a balanced view of things. To write the headline on how do I get clicks, how do I get eyeballs on
Sensationalism.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we don't get to talk about the companies that are really focused in on employee stability, employee growth. But they'd rather talk about the companies that are at, oh, we're going to lay off 40% of our people because of AI. And then 6 months later, they come back and they're like, tail between their legs going, well, that didn't work out very well. So maybe we're hiring those people back that we've really pissed off. And by the way, we've destroyed our reputation from a standpoint of, quote unquote, caring about our employees. Here in San Francisco, this was a huge deal over the last several years. Companies, I mean, laying off 37% of their workforce, and with the guidance that, oh, we're going to replace them all with AI. And now, year and a half later, silence on the topic. Where if had I really been successful, really driven the ROI, we would be hearing nothing but that, because that's what they were looking for, right? They want to drive the stock price, they want to drive the engagement, they want to answer to the board, what's our AI doing for us? And then there was the MIT study from earlier this year, where 95% of AI projects are not delivering. Well, again, you and I would go back and say, but what were you trying to do? What's the
Right.
outcome that you are bringing in an AI tool to use to accomplish what? And I think where we're talking about here in terms of the people, the big challenge is that everybody, people are extremely complex. And I think people fall into categories. They say, oh, boomers are going to act this way. Gen X is going to be this way. Millennials are going to be this way. And you're like, yeah, no, that's not necessarily the case, because we don't know about the individual. And when this is the reason why we brought Balance-Wise IQ to the market last year, was we felt that companies, regardless of the end goals are, how do we enable, at least from in my perspective, our elevator pitch is pretty simple, right? We start off and we say, we're all about enabling your employees by giving them the tools, support, training, capabilities they need to be successful. If your employees are being successful in delivering for your customer is going to buy more products and services. That's the elevator pitch. Okay, behind that, four things: people, process, data, and technology working together to create a solution. Cool. But I've been doing this for a while. The focus tends to be on what technology am I going to buy and implement, and that's going to fix my problem, without looking at the other three elements: the people, the process, and the data.
Yeah, it's
And
looked at in a
what
vacuum.
Well, right. And so what we're saying is, no, let's flip that a little bit and say, use a tool like Balance-Wise IQ, which is a qualitative check-in, weekly check-in with employees about how they're feeling about their work, their engagement level. And that's a pretty powerful understanding of, are people engaged in their work? And, as we've known from the Qualtrics study that we quote numerous, on almost at a point of ad nauseum, that
Gartner
70,
study.
I'm sorry, no, Qualtrics. I'm thinking about the big global engagement study.
The Gallup workforce,
Yeah,
global
I'm
state of the
sorry, Gallup.
workforce. Yeah.
Yeah, the Gallup State of the Workforce.
We
So
look at so
you'll,
many, they all kind of run together.
well, yeah, and it's so to your point. So again, we look at this global statement of the workforce, and pretty consistently and getting worse, 70% or more of employees on average are not engaged. That means in many organizations, one of your biggest line items for expense, you're not getting full value from. Okay, and what are you doing to fix that? And this is, I think, where we don't hear this conversation very often. If that was a physical factory that was only operating at 30% effectiveness, you'd have all kinds of consultants running around going, how do we improve this? How do we improve our supply chain? How do we improve our outcomes? How do we reduce the amount of errors that come out the back end or out, get produced? And the answer would be there'd be all kinds of people involved.
Yeah.
On the people side, we don't hear that. I mean,
No,
we hear,
exactly.
oh, we've got a training program that's going to make everybody happy, or we're going to sell you foosball tables, or even better yet, lease you the foosball tables so that it's a never-ending revenue stream from you. Actually, we should get back into the foosball table business, I think.
Highly
But
lucrative.
yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what's happening in San Francisco right now. These
Well,
companies they're
a lot of
falling
people
right
in
back
charge.
into the, well, they're in the 1999, 2000 space on this stuff. But anyway, the point that we're trying to get at is I don't think we can deal or predict or manage to an employee if we're not talking to them, if we're not giving them a voice that they feel is a safe place to share what they're doing and how well they're doing and
How
to
they feel
ask
about
for
it.
help, right? And to be safe to ask for help because so many people don't feel that, right? I mean, you and I have done this. I mean, I remember working with project managers and even being a project manager where God forbid that everything wasn't perfect. You couldn't even really feel comfortable to raise viable concerns because nobody wants to hear it. And if you're not 100% on board, then you must be not on board.
Yeah,
And a
it's
lot
an
of
absolute one or the other.
right, right. And so I think, and again, sharing our methodology, our thinking, our bigger methodology of course, stop doing stupid stuff. And we think not listening and not engaging with your employees falls into the stupid stuff category. And then, but how do you do that? And that's why we brought Balanced West IQ to the market, which is that emotional check-in. We're bringing scorecard, which is, how are you actually performing against your targets and where the weaknesses lie? And then using those tools to help develop an individualized development plan or support plan for that employee so that they can be more engaged, so that they can feel more value in what they're doing in the work that they're doing. I mean, I
They have
think
a better
we've,
experience. And speaking of the topic is right, like how to CHROs, human resource partners, how can they use AI better? So, for example, the AI just helped me out by saying, "Hey, Tim has taken up 99% of this podcast. Maybe you should say something." So that there's a
two
real
words and they're not
practical.
happy birthday, my
That's
friend.
a practical way to use AI. But everything you said, everything, all 10 minutes of it was valid. And it provides a crappy experience for the employee. And if you're providing a crappy experience for the employee, you think they're going to reciprocate with productivity? This isn't, to your point, this isn't 1999 where you've got a line of people waiting up to take the place of the person that you're verbally and probably mentally abusing, either directly or indirectly. And once they don't meet that threshold, you kick them to the curb, and the next person comes in eagerly waiting to prove themselves, and you get, that much productivity and push out of them until you burn them out, and then the cycle doesn't stop. That's not where we're at today. That's not where you had the generational makeup or the globalization and competition that you have today. So the environmental circumstances that made today's leaders successful in the beginning of their career, you can't do that same thing because it's not the same world as it was then. And a lot of
Right,
leaders, the good leaders that are figuring this stuff out, they realize that and they're adopting techniques and adapting to the ever-changing current environment. And it's going to continue to change, especially as more people start to realize the potential AI has for practical application and the outcomes it can drive and increase engagement with employees by helping them and augmenting them, not being threatened by them. And once people learn how to use AI effectively, right? There's like a whole whole new world you'll see, and you can't unsee it, and you start seeing more possibilities on how to do that, and it's a very positive ripple effect that can go through organizations. The problem is that is very few and far between in practice right now, and everybody is thinking that, however it is, magically people have forgot salespeople their goal is to go in and get you hyped about something that they're trying to get you to purchase and depart your money with for their product as quickly and as effectively as possible. And people are just eating it up and throwing out the money, and the money's becoming more scarce, right? If you look at budgets for organizations and you look at, and Courtney, I think, quoted a pretty good number here. I need to find it so I don't mispronounce or missay this, misquote it. But companies spent 37 billion in generative AI in 2025 so far. And this year's still not over, so it could go up even more, another billion or two. But 37 billion. And so I still lay claim to find me one organization who's publicly traded or privately and have publicly disclosed, hey, we invested X amount of money in AI, and here's directly where it improved our P&L statement, either through increased productivity, increased sales, and offsetting uh, labor costs. I still haven't seen a single company come to market and say that and claim that, or make a big claim where they didn't state the P&L, the actual P&L results, and then later come back and say, oh, yeah, we were kind of wrong about that. I guess we were going to have to hire the 5,000 people we said we weren't going to hire.
Well, I mean, Klarna was, one of the ones you and I were following, with
Yeah,
the announcement a year and a half ago. Oh, we've invested in AI tools. We're now going to replace six or 700 of our customer facing staff. And then what, 6 or 7 months later, have to come back and say, yeah, that didn't work out. So we're bringing those people back. And I think this is, kind of the risk scenario, because not only it's not as simple as just say, hey, 700 people goodbye. Oh, and then 6 months later, hey, remember us? And we want you to
yeah.
come back and not be pissed off at us and not, blah, blah, blah. And
Well,
of course,
imagine being those people, and then if you don't have another option to come back, if you do come back, what's your level of productivity going to be? And
ah,
like trust and
well,
uh,
that's, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, I don't know, it's just very interesting.
Well,
We've missed the human connection in all of this.
I
Everybody
think,
got super hyped up about AI, and we've talked about this too. There's no static AI application. When you say AI, it can mean different things to different
well,
people.
and it has so many different, I mean, I laugh because like there's a new algorithm or a new acronym every week that comes
Right.
out. It's RAG this, world model that. And you're like, okay, but, and again, things like machine learning, we've been talking about for decades, right? Like this not, you know, I think the
Right.
larger models are great. And yeah, we're going to put this together, but okay, people say, well, it's an LLM, as if that's some kind of magic that makes it, that makes quote unquote that large language model absolutely valid and accurate. Well, the answer is no, because you don't know went into it. You don't know when it was updated. You don't know its relevance anymore. And then we have the lovely AI slop problem of hallucinations that now have to be cleaned up. So again, not to
It's
spin off
garbage
on
in,
this.
garbage out.
It's
It's
right,
not, it doesn't matter what you're applying it to. Every single thing requires data. Every single thing
right.
requires data and relevant data and hygienic data. And so with, the whole premise of our podcast today, right? With Balance Wise IQ, that is a very practical application that an organization can literally start today. In fact, we just started a client on Friday, right? A new client on Friday,
Yep.
and we're already getting like such great data from their employees and their customers, right? And so now we're going to be able to make better decisions based off of the data that's being produced, and it's happening every single week. And so if I'm an HR leader and I say, okay, well, my CFO, CEO, whoever comes to me and says, hey, we don't have a lot of money in the budget this year. We're used to hiring people because our turnover is X. We got to keep people, but they got to perform better, right? I don't know how. It's magic, right? But you need to make it happen. You're the CHRO and your team, 4 people for the 10,000 people they support. You got to figure it out. I mean, I'm being a bit facetious on that, but I don't think I'm being too facetious to be
Well,
quite honest with you. Go ask a CHRO, how they feel right now.
it's a
And the
setup
point
to
is,
fail. I,
what
it,
their
Good.
fall people is what I think's occurring. And
Hmm.
so balance wise IQ can kind of be that diamond in the rough that comes out and says, look, here is an AI tool that listens to your employees every single week and tells
Yep.
you how they're feeling, how is their sentiment, and oh, you made this policy change. How did they feel about that? What was their sentiment about that? And this occurred, or whatever change occurs, but giving them a virtual voice that they feel comfortable, and just them, the first step of them feeling comfortable and engaging, even though it's AI they're engaging with, it's still engaging. And the data that is looked at from an HR perspective, it's no different than an employee walking into your office and telling you how they feel about something. Like imagine that. Remember those days, Tim, when that used to happen? You know,
Yes,
but
both the good and the bad. I remember
well,
those
yeah, but it
days.
still occurred. But it was still like to me, it was all good. Even if I had people curse me out, but it
Yeah.
was still me. I'm like a robot about processing everything, anyways, though. But it's just a good modernized AI driven tool that allows your
Well,
people to have a voice, and then you can reciprocate that you're listening to them, and then guess what? You're engaging with them. So now you're not at 30%, which is where the global workforce is according to Gallup, right? And then you're improving. I don't see many downsides to where people are at right now in the hole that everyone's trying to dig
well,
themselves out of, and taking this type of action with adopting practical AI
yeah.
that doesn't remove the human, that augments the human on both sides, the HR partner and the employee.
You know what I think is interesting though is there's so many people out there that are so afraid of having that conversation, whether it's whether it was a walk up and verbal conversation that we used to have, or God forbid in a survey, or somebody had a suggestion box and dropping it in there. I mean, the level of stress that I see executives, it's the same people who will say, hey, how can I help you, Mr. Salesperson, or Mr. Delivery guy? And you say, well, you could do great, you could do a outreach to to our client at your level, executive to executive, and
Right.
just say, how's it going? And how many times did they say, yeah, I'd be happy to do that, and then never follow up because they're like, well, what if there's a problem? And you're like,
All
I'm sorry, I
right.
didn't mean to sound like everybody's a dummy, but what if there's a problem? And you go, just tell them I didn't know about it. Let me get my delivery guy on it and dump it back on me or whoever to kind of drill. But at least you called and asked. And even it being on the other side, when I was a CIO, I have 100 vendors, right? That are, some of whom are getting millions of dollars a year from me. And I can remember out of all of those vendors, and there was one who actually called me, and it was Jacomai because they were doing the broadband stuff. And they were like, and the CEO called me, and they were a startup, right? But they felt the need to check in and say, how are we doing? And that's as simple as it can be. And of course, now we're talking people talking to each other, which is the other thing we've learned generationally is that doesn't work anymore either, because many people don't handle what they believe to be a confrontational conversation at all. So they just tell people what they want to hear so that the stress goes away.
Yeah.
But
What?
on a survey or online, oh my God, they'll unload how they actually feel. And sometimes even to a stranger, they'll be more comfortable talking to a stranger than they will to the person who can actually do something about it.
Well,
Anyway, sorry.
think about the place they're coming from though, the employees. They're looking at these TikToks and YouTube videos of, oh my gosh, I just got scheduled for a call today with my supervisor and HR was there. Let me record this. Everybody knows what that means. That means you're getting canned. You're getting fired.
Right.
And
Right.
that's become the norm. And that's like, look, I'm not saying that it should have been normalized in the first place, but that's the thing. Just like you mentioned earlier, the news articles, it's sensationalism. That's what gets posted. And it's emotionally relatable to a lot of people. Even if it hasn't happened to them, they're now exposed to that. And that's in their cognitive thought process and recall process of, well, my HR hasn't talked to me in forever. Well, yeah, they haven't talked to you in forever because there's four of them for 10,000 of you, right? And for a whole different rationale of business structuring and cost, quote unquote, cost optimization. But like that's what the HR teams are up against. And the way to come out is to figure out how do you give your employees a modernized voice. And it's exactly what you just said. Virtually, we're seeing all generations, by the way, really comfortable with telling us exactly how they feel. To I don't want to say graphic because that's not like I don't mean that in a negative context. in a great degree of explanation. But it's really good that they feel like you can tell it's been bottled up and they've been looking for an outlet, a viable outlet. And this is the way. And then HR or whoever, has access to the platform and HR can work with, if it's a direct supervisor, a line supervisor, work with them and say, okay, how can you work with this person? How can you take this information and this sentiment and their feeling? And how can we apply that positively back to let them know we are listening to them, we are hear them, we hear them, and we're going to take action based off of everyone's feedback. Once we once we can take action, and if we can take action or communicate back what is,
Well,
what actions we are taking.
I,
That's what
I-
employees want right now.
well, and I think you're jumping right into where you and I believe this is where AI can fill a gap. The gap is not going to be for AI to make the decisions or to, but rather AI through can be helped to guide where
Yeah.
do I want to invest my time and energy? Where are my critical resources that are at risk? And are there suggestions on what I can do about that that are aligned with our employee handbook, that are employed with, local laws and with the outcomes that we want to achieve? Because otherwise, what's the point? Again, if you don't have a clear path, why start on the journey?
No,
And
agreed.
so, anyway,
It's time prioritization. Time is the limited resource that everybody has. Doesn't matter your title, your compensation level, everybody has the same amount of time. And I would challenge everyone, you want to learn about AI, go mess around with whatever AI model you want and learn about positive reinforcement and the psychological benefits that come with positive reinforcement. And saying, hey, I have 100 people that I can give a quick kudos to, or even a winky face in a Slack channel that will just kick their endorphins at the high end and they'll be, super contributive and happy from that. So then looking at the people that really need the help and the time and attention, like I need to spend an hour with Tim because he's talking way too much, and taking up all the time from Andreas on the podcast. So we're gonna have a coaching session on effective time utilization and conforming to,
good luck with
conveying
that.
curtly. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. AI is
You
going to
have,
solve it for me, or I'll just
yeah, yeah.
replace you with AI and have AI chat
Well,
with podcast, right? That's what most people, that's what most executives are doing. Like, oh, I'll just replace you with AI and everything will be all right. All right.
well, good luck
With
with
that,
that. Yeah,
with
with
that,
that,
we'll
time
wrap
to
it
go.
up. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
wrap it up. And no, I think it was a good conversation. More of a one-sided conversation on your part, but nonetheless, I think it was a good conversation. And hopefully, folks are looking at not looking at AI as being a threat, but looking at it as a human augmenter. And don't change anything you're doing today. Don't change your I would say change your annualized surveys that you do that are crap. Come weekly to balance wise IQ. That's the one thing I would say I
Yep.
highly recommend you
Hey,
change like now. But then just look at what is your business? What is success? And how can you leverage AI to help you achieve that goal? Not replace you, not replace people. How can you use AI to help
right.
you get to your goal quicker?
Absolutely agree. And so thanks again. This was a stirring conversation. You only had to insult me half a dozen times, which is pretty good for these. No, I don't feel insulted at all. But it is good. And again, we come back to stop doing stupid stuff. And if you're questioning whether it's stupid or not, that's probably the
Probably.
first point of going, maybe time for a change.
Yeah. If you have to sit back, that's a really good litmus test there. If you have to sit back and think about, is this stupid? There's a high probability it's probably stupid. I won't say 100% stupid, maybe like 55%, but that's still pretty high.
Yeah, it's like that whole old joke about when you get on the bus, if you don't find the crazy person, you're probably it. It's similar things.
I like that.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining us. And again, don't stop doing stupid stuff.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tim.